If I had to identify the most common character motivation in video games, or all of media for that matter, I'd probably go with either the power of friendship or vengeance. And that is the one I'd like to isolate. Vengeance is the pursuit of acting revenge upon someone who wronged you. Vengeance is such a commonality in media that it transcends genre, media, and language. Guts seeks vengeance against Femtos. John Wick seeks vengeance upon the guys who killed his dog. And Thorin Oakenshield seeks vengeance for his forefathers. Heck, the entirety of Game of Thrones is vengeance fused with political subterfuge. And, ice zombies. So, when Sonya, my personal favorite character from Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, is labeled as the Vengeful Mage in Fire Emblem Heroes, I begin to raise an eyebrow. As how could vengeful, as tired, overused, and predictable a concept as it is, come to define such a multidimensional, complex, and layered character? Ah, Sonya. If there's one character who could rival the power of the Thigh Goddess herself, it's Sonya. As I stated prior, she is my favorite character from Fire Emblem Echoes, and a lot of that, besides the, 4 main reasons, is thanks in part to Sonya's underlying backstory and intriguing characterization. In much the same way you can attribute nihilism to Zephiel, or various mental illnesses to Camilla, albeit that one might be more or less unintentional, so too is Sonya characterized by a character flaw born from mental inhibition. Sonya intrigues me in many the same ways as Lion from Sacred Stones does. Much like Lion, she's a grounded and relatable depiction of a mental illness, only whereas Lion represents depression, Sonya represents masking. Masking is an archaic name for a psychological condition in which the affected hides their emotions by replacing them with, most often, the inverse, such as hiding depression with outward joy. Sonya is a textbook example of this, as she hides her malcontent and hate for her family through the only avenue she can. It is no secret that Sonya lavishes her own physique and sexuality, an integral piece of her character represented beautifully in her character design. Sonya nails the sexy mage angle pretty hard. The dark reds induce confidence and arrogance, whereas her stance suggests control and maturity. Yet her facial expression exudes a bit of playful sarcasm. The use of blacks and purples then key us into the more negative and darker aspects of her personality. What strikes me weird about Sonya is that while she lavishes in her own sexuality, she displays very little attraction or interaction with the male characters in Fire Emblem Echoes. This could likely be a result of a general fear and distrust of men spurned by her father's actions. I'd even go as far to say that Sonya's evangelization of her own body might point to her being, in fact, asexual. In Sonya's second base conversation, she recounts her jealousy of Celica and her station as princess, capping it off with this quote, "I lived in a priory when I was a child, wearing the same drab habit, praying day after day. Well, no thank you. I'm done with that. If beautiful women don't celebrate their beauty, the entire human race loses out. Don't you agree?" This quote is extremely telling, as it gives us another piece of context into Sonya's thirst to appear beautiful. In essence, she is directly opposing the preconceived notion of her upbringing by rejecting it and doing the opposite. It's almost a juvenile and rebellious statement. Essentially, she's refused to wear robes as the cleric she once was, and acts sexy because sexuality was deprived from her during her upbringing. This is a turning point in Sonya's character arc. Until now, we've seen Sonya as this untouchable ice queen who doesn't even flinch in the face of Saber, the mercenary who won the hearts of Fire Emblem fangirls the world over. According to the Japanese version, Sonya is 25 years old during the events of Echoes, and yet somehow seems both characteristically juvenile, yet also wise beyond her years. Consider her first base conversation. Did you need something, little girl? Apologies, treating you like a child must chafe a bit. How's that again? Don't you agree that you're just still a child? Well, what a perfectly boring reply. You're no fun to tease, you know that. Pipe up and speak from the gut every now and then. Quit being so stoic. Don't give me that sad puppy look. You make it seem like I'm bullying you. I'm just saying you should speak your mind a bit more. That's all. Here we see Sonya parade her experience and age in an effort to criticize Celica's adamant demeanor, but her language and inflections are more akin to a party girl telling her book-smart friend to have a little fun for once. It is this duality, the mature way that Sonya characterizes herself and the childlike way she taunts Celica, and later Jenny in their supports, that shows a more fun-loving and easygoing side of Sonya that we rarely get to see. It is my belief that Sonya is unconsciously trying to relive her childhood and teenage years through her adult life. For someone of her age and seeming maturity, too much of her personality is based on reactivity and cynicism that it clashes with her otherwise aloof demeanor, and no better is this demonstrated than in her supports with Jenny.
Sonya?
Huh. I'm surprised to see you here. I thought you didn't like my type.
Yeah, about that. I wanted to apologize. It was a rude thing to say.
You don't have to apologize. It didn't bother me.
Maybe not, but it bothered me. I said what I did because you remind me of my mother.
Okay, now I'm bothered. I'm nowhere near old enough to have a kid your age.
No, it's not like that. It's been years since I last saw her. My mother, I mean. Years since she left me at the Priory.
Ah.
She was beautiful, just like you. And she always wore makeup as well. So, seeing you makes me think of her. I'm sorry.
Oh, you poor thing.
In their B support, Jenny compares Sonya to her mother. A comparison the 25-year-old woman doesn't exactly accept at first. But what follows is the turning point of this conversation, leading beautifully into their A support.
Hey, Jenny.
Oh, hello, Sonya.
Still not comfortable around me?
Not completely, no. I'm sorry.
It's all right. But I wanted to share something with you. I also grew up in a priory, although it was my father who abandoned me.
Is that true?
Yes. And if I met a man who reminded me of him, I'd likely kick his face in. Fortunately, you don't come across those types too often. Anyway, my point is that you don't have to hold back with me. You're free to hate my guts as much as you like, because I understand.
No, actually, I feel a little more comfortable after hearing what you said.
Oh, that was quick. Well, in that case, I suppose we can be bitter together.
Here we see Sonya automatically make the assumption that Jenny would hate her, due to the discomfort around Sonya and Sonya's own experience with parental neglect, once again demonstrating that a lot of Sonya's apparent maturity is mostly a facade. Yet when Jenny refutes it, Sonya is taken aback and can only laugh it off as, "We can be bitter together." Jenny is a representation of who Sonya was, a sheltered priory girl with big dreams and an innocent, playful demeanor. Sonya's sisterhood with Jenny is no coincidence as a result. For whatever reason, be it how Jenny admires Sonya as she did her own sisters, or Sonya's maternal instinct feeling compassion towards Jenny, a proper mother is something they both lacked. And Jenny is to Sonya that everything Sonya once was. And the bitterness she feels is not for her neglectful family, but instead her own heartbreak of an age-long past that Sonya longs to relive. Malcontent, a lost childhood, the trauma of a broken family. These are all things Sonya hides behind her sexuality and apparent maturity, yet she still harbors a deep desire for those who wronged her to repent. In essence, vengeance. Vengeance is something Sonya has actively avoided, hid behind a mask, and left to fester for many years since she abandoned her priory. She is a girl with daddy issues. Her body aged, but her mind never did. This is why she has her title in Heroes. This is why Sonya is the Vengeful Mage. And going through her hero's quotes, much of her personality is still left intact, a rarity among Hero's characters. Both her outward sexuality and maturity, as well as her underlying juvenile behavior, is portrayed wonderfully by Tara Sands reprising her role and giving just as stellar a performance.
Lonely, I take it. It's a shame if a woman doesn't look as powerful as she feels. Don't you agree? What am I going to do with you? Seeking attention, are we? Spending time with you helps me forget some painful things. Thank you.
But it's these two quotes I'd like to isolate.
My sisters, long gone. I used to be quite a pest to my sisters when I was too young to know better.
Until now, the player's view of Sonya has been limited to her father. Both Hero's and Sonya's final base conversation allow us to finally understand what childhood Sonya has exactly lost.
Growing up, I had two older sisters. The eldest was stern, but deeply kind. The middle one was smart and mature, and also marched to her own beat. The three of us were inseparable back at the Priory. We waited for our father to come get us, yet knew the day would never come. But that was a lifetime ago, and they're both gone now.
Through this final base conversation, we can understand the nature of Sonya's personality. When taken in tandem with her Hero's quotes that I mentioned earlier, she implies that she was a troublemaker, and we can see how the personalities of her sisters were later adapted by Sonya as a kind of coping mechanism for their departure and disappearance. Sonya's blunt cynicism and friendliness to Celica and Jenny is likely imparted from her elder sister, whereas her independence and maturity was possibly taken from her middle sister. And apart from her sex appeal, every visible aspect of Sonya's outward personality is more so that of her sisters and not her own. The Sonya we meet is not Sonya, but rather a depressed amalgamation of teenage Sonya and her two older sisters. And only through her supports with Jenny and actions during Celica's campaign do we get to see Sonya cast away the legacy of her sisters and remove the mask she wore for many years. As Celica begins her trek towards the Duma Tower, the party encounters Jeddah in the swamps leading up to the foreboding megalith. If Sonya attacks Jeddah at any point, we get this conversation.
Jeddah!
Well, if it isn't Sonya.
You've no idea how long I've waited for this day. You stole the lives of my sisters and cursed them to become witches. I will avenge them with your blood.
Their souls were offered to Duma freely, and both received endless bliss in turn. Only a fool would refuse to see a truth so plain. You are a burden to your wise sisters, and I shall relieve them of it now.
This blows the door wide open on Sonya's past. She is the youngest daughter of Duma's current high priest. She swears death upon Jeddah, her passion for vengeance reignited as Sonya lets years of pent-up anger finally blow over, until either Jeddah falls or blocks her attack. Sonya is left, empty and alone, just as she was when her sisters were taken away from her. Her quest for vengeance isn't fulfilling. It couldn't please her. She had spent her life avoiding confronting her father until it all boiled over, and the release was not an explosion, but instead, a puff of smoke. In the final chapter, Sonya has no exclusive dialogue with Jeddah or her sisters Marla and Hestia. While it seems to be an oversight and a lack of conclusion to her arc, I feel it is instead the perfect conclusion. Why should Sonya give time to a man who was only her father by blood? Why should she feel pity for two hollow shells that in her mind are only puppets wearing her sisters' faces? Before the final battle, Sonya says this.
It's almost painful to watch. Just how hopelessly ignorant can someone be?
This quote is in reference to her father Jeddah and how blind he is to his own atrocities. There is no anger in her voice, however. Only pity. Sonya has finally let her past go. Sonya's story ends on a far more bittersweet note than most of the Echo's cast, many of which end up either happily married or well off as a result of their connections to Valentia's new king and queen. But Sonya instead disappears, off in search of a cure for witchdom, only to reemerge as the Witch of Fear Mountain, taking Nui Baba's place. While it seems that fate has caught up with her, it is in my opinion that Sonya found the cure she sought, a new kind of witchdom. One Sonya could wield as a way not only to preserve her youth, but also spend her days curing as many as she can, and keeping a watchful eye that no other soul suffers the same way she did. But that is of course speculation and wishful thinking on my part. Vengeance is still the oldest and most predictable character motivation we can get, and while Sonya holds the center of this at her character, her name, the Bulgarian diminution of Sophia, meaning wisdom, make her eventual possible martyrdom as the Witch of Fear Mountain representative of the odd occasion when a character grows out of vengeance. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, why not click like, or maybe even share it with a friend. If you want to stay up to date with my channel, or you want to see more content like this in the future, let me know in the comments, and maybe subscribe if you really feel so inclined. I tend to upload every other week, so content is frequent, and I do like to reply to comments. As I said, Sonya is probably my favorite Echoes character, and I don't think that's any kind of secret. Her voice acting is excellent, and if you get the chance, tell Tara Sands she did a bang-up job, because I really enjoy it. It's honestly better than Ian Sinclair's Berkut in my opinion, but that's a topic for another day. As always, my name is ZerkMonsterHunter 4, and no matter what games you like to play or 2D women you find attractive, happy hunting.